This is Eric Nevlin, and you are listening to the Fulham Focus podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Fulham Focus podcast. My name's Matt Boisclair, and it's that time once again as the Whites return to action as we prepare to travel to Everton on Valentine's Day this weekend. Feeling the love in the room tonight are Morgan Calvert and Mr. Love himself, Don Love. And we've got a fair bit to get through, including a look ahead to the game, plus Baldo joins me for an in-focus chat about Simon Davies. So let's get right on with the show.
Fulham.
All right, guys, so let's try something a little bit different this week because I think everybody's bored to death of talking about formations. Everybody's bored to death about talking about players. And I think everybody's probably bored to death about hearing about it as well. So we find ourselves in a position where we're staring down the barrel of the Championship right now with two very difficult fixtures in Everton away and Burnley away coming up in the next week. So we thought we'd have a bit of fun instead of just treading over the same old ground again and again. So let's talk about what us as supporters really love about being in the Premier League. And this can be either under normal circumstances, when we can go to the games, or in the current climate, or indeed both. So, Morgs, let me come to you first.
Yeah, so in terms of being in the Premier League, it's, from the overall club perspective, obviously financial security is the big one. When you drop out of the Premier League, you're kind of running the gauntlet a bit. When you're in the Premier League, you've got 120 million quid coming your way every season just from the TV rights. And it's, I don't know, we never used to care about this stuff. Even back in the day when we were treading water financially, it didn't really bother us. It just was part of the charm. But now it's when you see the likes of Bury and, even Bolton and other teams sort of disappearing. I mean, obviously Bolton didn't disappear, but very close to. You realise that the finances are integral to a club now. And it's a bit scary when you see it. And you don't want to be in a position where the club could potentially go under because you haven't been in the Premier League for X amount of years, or you've overspent, which clearly we have in the past. So it's the financial security is the big one. Coverage. I mean, these days, when I lived in Australia, it was great. You could watch every single game on TV. But over here, obviously, it was a bit sort of mix and match, really, when you could. But now, obviously, in these COVID times, you can watch every game. Obviously, we'd love to be there, but given the circumstances, this is the next best thing. And I guess one of the things that we think about in terms of the Championship, we're competitive in the Championship, but we could be competitive in the Premier League. You only have to look at Villa to realise that you only have to be in for a season to establish yourself back in the league, to then build on that. And surviving one season in the Premier League is a way of building a really solid foundation for moving forward. So there is that ability to be competitive in the best league in the world as long as you can survive one season. And that doesn't come from being a yo-yo club. A yo-yo club is the worst thing for this because you will never get stability and you will always be struggling against FFP or attracting players that will keep you up. Or, as we're in a situation now, we can't spend money because, God forbid in 4 months' time, we'll be back down in the Championship where we can't afford to. So I think overall it's just it's better for the future of the club and, general excitement around being in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to focus on us as supporters. And, okay, obviously the finances kind of facilitate everything that we enjoy as supporters. But Don, let me just bring you in here because Morgs touched on something there and he talked about media coverage. What's the coverage like in the States, Premier League versus Championship?
So when I really started following Fulham, it was really hard here in the United States as an American to be able to see the match, let alone highlights of the match. There just wasn't a lot of coverage. I want to say it wasn't until like 2010 until it was a combination of like ESPN and Fox Sports that picked it up and started premiering the games. But again, it was whoever the BBC or what is your major one over there, Sky Sports, chose and said, hey, this is the one you're getting going to be allowed to broadcast. We didn't have a choice. Now, nowadays, everybody seems to be having a platform online that you can, sign into, log into, be a member of, and you can pretty much almost get every match you want. 2014, when we went down to the championship that first time, when we first initially went down, my very first thought was, how am I going to get to see the matches? How am I going to get to see the games? And I think at that time, I believe it was BN Sports here in the United States who picked up the championship rights. But again, they weren't doing every match. So I will give credit to the Cons. I know people never seem to want to give them credit for anything. They came up with the FFC TV, and via that, people like me, we were able to catch most of the games either through them or through BN Sports here in the States. Nowadays, on NBC, is the main one, and I believe they've got the rights through next season for the Premier League. If we were to drop down the championship, it's not that big a deal right now because ESPN has those rights. And again, I belong to those two different apps, so I can get all those matches. I will say what's getting irritating is every frickin' sports network has started here in the United States, at least, their own platform. So if you want to see all the games, you got to belong to like several different platforms. Like now, I'm not getting any hardly of the Champions League because CBS picked it up. Well, I don't want to have to join another platform and check out another bunch of money per month or per year. So from that aspect, I would say nowadays it's not a big deal for an American, at least for the most part, to go between the the NBC and ESPN to get both the championship and the Premier League. So,
but do you get every game of the championship on NBC or whatever?
So
can you choose
the way it works? At least the last time we were in the championship, the way it worked is, again, not every match was broadcast by BN Sports. At that time, it was BN Sports. Now it's ESPN. ESPN, if you go onto their app, the ESPN streaming app, on your computer at least, yes, you can get pretty much every match. And you can get the highlights within 12 hours, the full replay and everything. And again, if it's not broadcast, you usually, because it's in the championship, FFC TV, Fulham seems to be able to pick up the rights and be able to watch them. So, if this had been 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I'd have been screwed. I'd be begging you guys for updates. I'd be on Friends of Fulham on the daily, match thread and trying to figure out what's going on, or listening, to Gentleman Jim and stuff. So, which I still frequently do.
What about other benefits of being in the Premier League then as a supporter? What else is there? Like for me, I guess there's kind of the bragging rights with your mates and being part of that elite 20 teams in England. But it just doesn't seem to be for very long at the moment. And also then you've got a better pick of higher standard players in theory if you get your recruitment right. And then also the chance to upset the likes of, United, Chelsea, Liverpool, etc., etc. Yeah, Jurgen Klopp, for example, wasn't particularly happy when we managed to grind out that one-all draw with Liverpool before Christmas, but that was probably a good result for him because they can't seem to beat anybody at the moment. So, how does it sit with you, Don, in the Premier League?
A couple of things, like you mentioned. Number one, there's usually. Well, there is a lot better quality in the Premier League. I mean, it's the league you want to be in. If you were looking to be in the top quality league in the world right now, I still consider the Premier League to be the league. But I got to say, there's still a lot of quality in the Championship. And it's kind of fun watching the Championship and seeing different new faces or fresh faces that you're like, oh, that guy's actually pretty damn good. He's going to get scooped up in the future, or he's going places. So, there is that. For me, the big thing between the two is your team, despite its qualities, not only has to have good quality, it's got to have stamina. And the reason I say that is because the Premier League, you've got your set amount of games, but the Championship, God bless, you have 2, sometimes maybe 3 games a week. You've got grind out results, and it is just brutal. So that's another big difference
recently,
for me.
hasn't it? I mean, the Premier League's been the same.
Well, the Premier
recently.
League has, but this year. But in the past, we didn't have to do that. Premier League, you're like, I got a week to plan.
Yeah.
In the Championship, you were like, oh, you got a day and a half, 2 days, maybe, for a lot of these games. So that's another big one for me.
If you look at it as well, I mean, the players in the Championship in theory, shouldn't be as fit as Premier League players. And so that is, you should be seeing worse quality of football based on the fact that some of these, the older players especially, will be sort of dragging their asses on the floor by about sort of, December time because they've had to work so hard. But the actual quality of the Championship is, improved exponentially over the last 20 years. But you still want to see the best players. And, even ever since we went up to the Premier League in 2000, 2001, and it's, 2001 or 2002? I can't remember. And, you do get to see some extraordinary players that you just don't see in the Championship. You see maybe some young players who then go on to be top quality Premier League players, but you don't get the Agueros, you don't get the, back in the day, the Ronaldos, the Beckhams, or the Henrys and stuff. And that's what we are very fortunate to be able to see. Yes, it's on TV at the moment, but these are the players that we're very lucky to have in the league. And, in all respect to Championship players, it's not the same thing. And so you want to be in the top league and, you want to have the chance to be able to sign some of these players. And you just don't have the competitiveness to be able to do so, or the budgets, obviously, when you go down. And I think if we, as supporters, we want to see the best football. We want to see our team do as best as they can. And whereas, we might see us go up from the Championship, that's still not in the top 20 of the Premier League. So I think, that's where you want to be because you want to be one of the best, even though it can be quite fun being in the lower leagues.
But if you're in the Premier League, you don't want to be relegated 3 seasons in a row because those 3 seasons are going to be diabolical. And that's what we're staring down the barrel of right now. So let's come on to the Championship and let's talk about what we like about being in the Championship, because we posted this question into our team chat earlier, didn't we? And there was a lot of love for the Championship, or there were lots of positives that people were drawing out the Championship. And all I could really take from what we enjoyed about being in the Premier League was the financial aspect and the quality. But when your team doesn't have that quality, when it's down the bottom and it can't score goals, it's not that enjoyable. I'm not enjoying this season, for example. It's nice that we're getting a few points here and there by drawing some games, but it's not entertaining to watch. And I personally, all right, last season wasn't great either, but we've had some good times at a lower level. So let's talk about the positives and what we enjoy about being in the Championship. I'll come to you, Don.
Okay, a positive for me when I've come over to visit and seen some matches, okay? Something I actually like, and I think a lot of you guys actually appreciate it too. Most Americans follow, the big teams, your Man City, United, Chelsea, and all that other crap. They want to go to the big matches. They want to go to the big stadiums. I actually like the smaller stadiums. Seem to give off a better atmosphere to me. It's more intimate to me. So I love the Cottage. Absolutely love the Cottage. And I've been to Brentford and I've been to QPR. And so for me, I like the smaller stadiums. And I have to say, I also liked when we were in the Championship, the prices. The prices to go to a game in the Championship. One year, it allowed me to take my son and several of his mates and be able to afford to take them to an actual match, which they just thoroughly loved. So the prices are a big deal too. And actually, because they were all under the age of 16 at that time, they were like cheap. I want to say like $5 American or something a match. So it was like nothing for a child. So stadiums, locations, seeing different places and the prices, those were huge for me.
How about for you, Morgs?
I think what I like about the Championship is that every single game, no matter what level of the league you're in, is winnable. Yes, we're seeing some fairly sort of mixed results in the Premier League this year, but every Championship game, even if you're on a bad run of form, you're coming up against first or second in the league, there is a chance that you can win it. It's so competitive. And that is just, it just adds excitement of that league. Sure, the quality often isn't as good, but when you're actually in the ground, it's still exciting. And, you as a neutral, you may not watch, Rotherham versus Barnsley. But if you're, watching Fulham versus Sheffield Wednesday, you know that it's going to be probably, a highly competitive, exciting game. And if you're, as you sort of said, if you're 18th in the Premier League and you're playing, whatever it is, Man City, you just know you're on a hiding to nothing. And so I think that's kind of where the Championship is better for the fans, because it is a spectacle. And you can go into the ground not going, oh, God, we're going to lose this one again. You're actually going to go in and go, hey, we've been on a bad run of form, but today's the day we turn it around. And I think it's, as I said, it's the hope that kills you, but it's the fact that you are able to go into every game optimistic, even if you are out of form, even if you are on a bad run of results. And I think that's what football's about. You want to be able to go into games optimistically and looking forward to it, because at the end of the day, it is a day out. It is, it's fun. It's what you want to be doing. You don't want to be dragging yourself along to a game every day going, why am I doing this now? I've just spent, in the Premier League, I've just spent 50, 60 quid on a ticket, and I know that I'm going to be disappointed at the end of it. You spend 20, 30 quid tops in the Championship, and whatever happens, there's a good chance that it's going to be a good game. And so I think that's something that we miss from being in that league. Still want to trade it for the Premier League, but it is one of the positives. And other big one, don't get the BT commentators because they don't have the rights. And that's one of the big things that's been tried. Ian Dark, can't stand him, but we have to put up with him in the Premier League. Don't have to deal with him in the Championship.
Fair enough. Well, I was going to bring up the atmosphere actually in the grounds, because I think that in the Championship, I suppose the stadiums aren't always full. We had a unique experience last season for Fulham, really, in the Championship, where the ground was pretty much full every week, but that was because we didn't have the Riverside stand available. But generally in the Championship, there's empty seats, whereas you don't get that in the Premier League. But what you do get in the Championship is less supporters who turn up just for the day. So it tends to be the real hardcore supporters who really want to get behind the team. And also in the Championship as well, there's almost more to play for. There's more of a goal, let's say. You're kind of looking up, and you've always got that opportunity. Even if you're mid-table at Christmas, you might still make the playoffs if you put a little run together between Christmas and the end of the season. And there's always that element of that to play for. Whereas in the Premier League, it's almost split into 3 or 4 leagues, isn't it? The league, people fighting for the title, people fighting for Europe, and then you've got the people down the bottom who are fighting to stay up, and then everybody else. So for me, that isn't that fun. It's just almost like, I don't know, it's something to aim for, but once you're there, you're always looking beneath you, thinking, oh, how long before we drop out of this division? And also, a benefit of the Championship is no VAR. I think it's appalling. I can't stand it.
It will be there eventually, though. It's only a matter of time before the Championship takes
I thought it was scheduled here in the next season or two.
They got goal line technology, didn't they? Which is fine. I'm perfectly fine with that, because, it's just a robot telling you, yes, it's over the line or it's not. But yeah, VAR, just watching the games, and it does take away that excitement, doesn't it? And it's, until it's instantaneous, it won't work. It doesn't fit the model of watching football. It's fine for NFL, it's fine for cricket and tennis and all that. It doesn't fit football. And, yes, the Championship officials are far worse than the Premier League ones. But, we know that it's, the errors are human errors in that. And they're not being analysed over and over again. And then we find that they give the wrong result anyway, at the end, or the wrong outcome at the end of it. So I think, until they get VAR right, everyone is just going to be saying, oh, this is crap. But maybe one day they will get it right. It's only 2 seasons into it. It's still early days for it.
I'll tell you one other thing, Frenchie and Morgs, that I really like about the Championship is there are more American players that have been given, currently at least, opportunities to play in the Championship than there are in the Premier League. Now, over the years, several of those players actually started out at a Premier League team, and they either got relegated or they got sold off to a championship team. But still, as an American, if we're looking at our players that are being developed, more opportunities have happened in the championship than they have in the Premier League. So that's a plus for me.
Does a championship American player get coverage? Does he raise the awareness of the game over here, or is it just a?
So you got to be a hardcore American fan, okay, of the game, in order to really know where these different players are playing. Okay, especially now, we've actually got, oh my God, 20, 30 guys around Europe playing. So you really got to be in the know and constantly following these guys to know where all these different players are. I personally follow the guys that are in England more than I do in Europe, whether it's Germany or France or wherever. But for me, and I'm not trying to be mean as an American to the MLS, but the championship is a step up in my mind from the MLS still, okay? The MLS is improving every year in quality, okay? Thanks to the likes of like Beckham and stuff, starting more and more teams. But if you're an American who's really looking to develop your game and you want to get into the U.S. side, the national side, you're going abroad. And even if that's in the championship, those players, they do get pulled into the national squads. So for me, there's that. There's the development side of the U.S. players.
Speaking of the development side as well, though, I guess, had we been in the Premier League a few years ago when Ryan Sessegnon was breaking through, Ryan Sessegnon would not have got the chance that he got to play in our first team. Well, certainly not at the age of 16. So that was a real positive. I guess that was more circumstances about where we were at the time when a very good player was just coming through and he was ready. But arguably, if we were in the middle of a Premier League season, then who knows what would have happened to Sess. He probably would have got sent out on loan and certainly would never have had the Fulham career that he had. That's for sure. Anyway, let's move it on. And just something else I wanted to do really quickly for a bit of fun. If you could bring back one former Fulham player in their prime to get us out of the mess that we find ourselves in at the moment, who would you choose and why would you choose them? Don, you first.
Okay, so I actually I posted this question on both Twitter and Friends of Fulham, okay? And, I put out 4 different things that were the criteria for me. If you're going to bring back an ex-player, I wanted a player who, number one, was going to be a fighter, okay? Someone who would give 110% every match. Number 2, I wanted someone who could motivate the current team and really fire them up, get the fire back in their belly, and ready for the fight. Number 3, I really wanted someone who could help with the goal scoring, because that is a huge thing right now for us. And number 4, I really wanted somebody, like, especially in the midfield, who could help speed up the play, find that, oh my God, through ball or that chip or something that made things happen in the final third or led to goal scoring opportunities. Okay. So I got all kinds of responses, everybody from the old time classic names like, Les Barrett, King Rufus, George Best, Johnny Haynes, those kind of things. But earlier, more current for me, names that were thrown out was Dembele, Mark 1, the first one. Obviously, Clint Dempsey and Brian McBride, those are some of the newer ones that obviously could, in their prime, we could throw in this team and they'd definitely be up for the fight and help us. But I got to say, from a personal perspective, the one that I would pick is Danny Murphy. And for me, Danny Murphy is one of those players, a lot like, Brian McBride was and stuff, just no nonsense. Always came out 110%, always had that fire in his belly, ready to fight, always firing up the team, getting them, if they were down, back into the game. Always had that killer instinct to find that nice pass, that nice chip, or make something happen. So for me, he's got to be the guy. Now, on a different note, the other reason I would pick him to bring back, and this could be in a different aspect. Let's talk about maybe coaching and on the practice field. What better guy could you think of being on the actual practice pitch, instilling confidence in these guys, getting them, to fire up, get organized and everything. So if you're also talking about a player that came back and maybe helped from the coaching aspect, again, I think Danny Murphy is a perfect candidate.
I think that's a fair shout. Danny Murphy works for the BBC on Match of the Day these days, and I think it's those players that go straight into punditry and they get a nice little cushy number. It's the paychecks kind of write themselves whilst they're there. Whereas in football management, the jobs don't necessarily last so long. And if I was Danny Murphy, I'm not so sure I'd want to leave the BBC at the moment. I'd probably think I know what side my bread's buttered on. I'm gonna hang around there and keep collecting the money for talking shit, basically. I mean,
but you would think the fact what you're saying there is that Danny Murphy should come in and be the influential player, but at the same time, he's kind of similar to Scott Parker in that sense. I mean, Scott Parker should be doing that job, and he should be the one that's geeing him up. I know as a head coach, he needs to do tactics and stuff like that, but they're quite similar in how they captain teams. And so, you want the fire of Danny Murphy in Scott Parker, but we know that Scott Parker had that fire back in his playing days. So you kind of need him to start. Well, I'm sure he is, but he's, it's not quite working yet. So you need the Parker fire from his playing days really on that team now.
No, just for clarification, okay, so we don't get any tweets or notes or PMs, whatever. I am not saying that Parker is doing a bad job. I'm not saying Parker doesn't fire up the team. I'm not saying that Parker doesn't still have the confidence of the team in the locker room, okay? I'm just saying if there was a person I could see, Parker reached out and said, hey, would you mind coming in and helping a little bit? I could see Danny Murphy.
Well, we're talking about Danny Murphy, the player, anyway. Let's not go down the managerial side because we've done that to death, and that's what we wanted to avoid tonight. So let's move on. The player for me that I would bring back is Steve Malbronk. I think he is everything that our midfield lacks at the moment. Creativity, scores goals. Looking at the players that have scored goals from midfield for us this season, Tom Kearney's got one, Loftus-Cheek's got one. There's nobody else. Nothing for Lamina, Reed, Onoma, Anguissa. 2 goals all season. Steve Malbronk, over his 6 seasons, he played 206 games for us and scored 38 goals, which is an average of 6 goals per season. And in total, he made 336 Premier League appearances, including both for us, Spurs, and for Sunderland. And he got 55 assists during that time as well. And that's something we're really lacking. We're lacking goals, so obviously we're lacking assists. He linked the attack and the midfield. He could dribble. He could play either on the right or right in behind the strikers. And he could also score penalties. But he was also able to pick that pass out. And I think that his kind of energy, enthusiasm and drive from midfield is something that would really benefit us this season. And it would be worth a load more goals, that's for sure. How about you, Morgs? Who would you pick?
I mean, I try to think of someone from back in the day as opposed to sort of, 21st century. But the one player that I kept coming back to was Louis Saha. He's exactly what we're missing in that striker position. And, when we were talking about strikers that we needed to try and sign, it was someone who was quick, who could finish, who could do pretty much everything. And Saha fitted that mold beautifully. And we haven't, we don't have that type of player. Mitro could be, but he's not quick enough. It's sort of, Josh Madger, we have no idea. And we have no other striker. Cav, he hasn't got the pace either, he has anymore, or the finishing ability. But Louis Saha is that exact player that we need. And if he was here in peak form, I don't think we'd be anywhere near the position that we are at the moment. So Saha is definitely the player that I go for.
Well, let's bring all 3 back.
To be honest, why not? They're only in their 40s.
Yeah, good point. Right, let's come on to Stats then. Morgs, what have you got for us?
So just looking at Everton Stats for this season, looking at their points per game, they've dramatically improved from last year. They're on 1.6 goals per game this season as opposed to 1.2 last year. And they've also tightened their defence. They're at 1.3 per. So they've actually despite having fewer goals conceded per game, they've actually kept clean sheets in only 19% so far, as opposed to 24% last season. But obviously, you've still got 16 games to go or so of the season, so that could improve as they move forward. They've dramatically improved in Carlo Ancelotti's first full season, and as I said, they've kept fewer clean sheets, which is slightly strange, but I think they started the season particularly strongly and sort of tailed off a little bit, but I think they've picked up their form again now. So only 4 of their 11 wins this season have come at Goodison Park. They've only picked up 14 points at home compared to the 23 that they've picked up away. And 4 of the 6 losses have come at Goodison, and only 2 away. And they haven't won at home since 19th December when they beat Arsenal 2-1. They've played 3 games since, 2 losses and a draw. Maybe there's that chance to end the hoodoo. We don't do well at Goodison, so maybe this is a chance. And obviously, this comes back to, does the lack of fans in the stadium make a difference? You'd have to think, yes, it does. 76% of their games this season have resulted in over 1.5 goals scored by either team. And both teams to score have happened in 62% of their games at home, or overall, actually. Looking at their points, average points, unsurprisingly, this is their best season since 2013-14. They're 12 points better off at this stage than they were last year. They're currently 4 points worse off than they were in 2013-14. But so are we. And when we went down 2013-14, we were 4 points worse off than we are now. It didn't end well then, obviously. But 62% of their goals at Goodison this season have come in the first half, and 60% of the goals that they conceded have come in the second half. So, if we're 1-0 down at half time, don't fret. There's a 60% chance we'll score in the second half. And no team has scored more goals from inside the 6-yard box than Everton in the league. They currently have 15 goals, and guess who's bottom with 1? Yeah, us, unsurprisingly. And no team has scored more headed goals than Everton this season, 10 of their goals have come from their players' heads, and we're currently 15th in that regard with just a measly 4.
God, are we really 4 points worse off than we were in the 13-14 season at this stage?
Yeah, and but that's we've had 1 manager as opposed to the 7 we'd had by this point in 2013-14. So it's swings and roundabouts.
God. All right, let's have a quick look at the player stats for Everton then. In goal, they've got England goalkeeper Jordan Pickford. He's played in 17 out of the 21 games this season. He averages 2.8 saves per game, and he's made a catalogue of high-profile errors this season. They've also got Swede keeper Robin Olsen, who's played the other 4 games and could come in if Pickford isn't back to full fitness. In defence, they've got Michael Keane, another England player. He's missed just 1 league game for the Toffees this season. He's having a very good season under Carlo Ancelotti and is finally looking like the defender that everyone rated so highly when he was younger. He averages 4.4 clearances per game, and he'll be a tough presence to get past. So possibly chance for Alexander Mitrovic to play. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Scott Parker. French left-back Lucas Digne is continuing to be one of the most effective fullbacks in the league. He's currently got 6 assists to his name. No Everton player has got more assists than him this season. In midfield, they've got the Colombian playmaker James. He's been a superb signing for Everton, as everybody probably expected he would be. He follows Carlo Ancelotti around wherever Ancelotti goes. He's currently got 5 goals and 3 assists in 15 games for them, but he's very influential and is key to Everton's form this season. On the more defensive side of things, they've got Allen. No one in the Everton side makes more tackles per game than him, 3.4 on average, or concedes more fouls, 1.8 on average. In attack, very high profile, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is currently having the best season of his career so far. He's 23 years old and has got 13 goals in 20 games so far for Everton, which is an excellent return and probably more than anybody would have expected him to get. He's already equalled his tally from last season and will be almost certain to add more before the end of the season. 8 of the 13 have come from within the 6-yard box. 5 of those 13 have been headers, and 7 have been with his right foot. Richarlison is also a player to keep an eye on. Signed for 50 million quid a couple of years ago from Watford. He's got 2 goals and 3 assists. He's had an injury-plagued season so far and is yet to reach his full form. So that's the stats.
Has Richarlison only scored 2 goals? I kind of thought he'd scored far more than that. I know he's been injured, but they were scoring so many goals at the start of the season that I kind of thought he'd bagged a few. Apparently not, because, I mean, we can't, Stato is the god of stats, as we all know. So,
exactly.
Hey, one thing I was just, while you guys were doing the stats, I was just Googling this and looking everything up. Going on right now is the Everton-Tottenham game, and Everton's down 1-0 to Tottenham. But the interesting thing is that their manager announced that both Rodriguez and Pickford were not getting their late fitness checks passed. And so he was doing a late assessment of them for the Tottenham match, and he's left them out of the squad for that day.
Okay, well...
Could it carry over? Could it carry over?
No, I'm guessing if they were actually having fitness tests, then they must have been pretty close to, fitness. Well, they're not going to risk it in a cup game. So I think, it's more likely that they're just being cautionary.
All right, can you stop right there? Can you stop right there and just let me fucking reach for whatever little hope I can anywhere I can find it?
I thought you were getting actually angry there for a minute, Don.
God, you're crushing my dreams, my hopes.
No, it'll be fine. They'll be injured, and then Calvert-Lewin's going to get injured tonight as well. And,
thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Fine. You happy now?
A couple more Everton stats that I looked up the other day. They've lost just once in 6 games. Their next games after us are Man City at home and Liverpool away. So they will definitely be looking to pick up points in this one, because that's going to be a couple of tough games for them. Don, let me come back to you. How would you line up for this one really quickly then?
Okay, really quickly, and not going into super depth of why and, whatever. Again, I actually liked the last team that's got put out, with the exception of I know everybody said he had the best game in the second half, Loftus-Cheek. I still don't get why he's in the lineup. So for me, that's one that I would leave out personally.
Would you start with Caballero then?
I would. And the reason being is just because he works so much harder in my mind than Loftus-Cheek does. And I love his work rate. At least he busts his ass the whole time. And if you notice in other games, he will easily slide over to that left-hand wing and allow Lookman to slide more in and play off with, hopefully, Mitro if he was starting. So there's that for me. Now, the other thing I'm really hoping is our guy Josh, he's got to be fit at some point. Maybe he could at least get a nod, and he becomes like a second striker that plays off of Mitro, or maybe he plays up top. I don't know. But,
no, you can't call anyone Josh anymore because we've got 2. So which one are you talking about?
Mr. Magic, come on, or Maja. So at any rate, I think the back four kind of picks itself. The only thing maybe different you do, and this has to do with, everybody recalls there towards the end of the last game, Harrison Reed was kind of pulling up and, holding his back hamstring there a bit. Hopefully there's no problems there. He's able and fit, because I really think he's just a machine that we really do need on the pitch right now. If we had more people fighting like he did, playing as hard as he did, I think we'd be not in this relegation battle at all right now. But if he's not fit, then I would just, Tate slides up, and Gisa is on the bench again for me. I'm not going into why. I just not going there. I would have Lamina instead. And in the back, you bring back in Iena. So the rest of it, I think, just picks itself. Obviously, you got to have Bobby on the field. I'm sorry. He's our number 1 scorer. Again, I think he's done great coming back and helping with the defense. So I think the team pretty much picks itself right now as far as I'm concerned.
How about you, Morgs? Disagree with any of that?
Yeah, all of it. I'm for this game. I'm going back to our back 3 / back 5. I think, you've got to be very wary of the Everton attack. And I think, having Anderson, Tosin, and Aina, the back three, with either Tete or Bobby on the right, and then Robinson on the left. Then Reed, obviously, if he's fit, alongside I go Anguissa. I think, if maybe he was tiring a bit, maybe he's still sort of feeling the effects of COVID, but I think on his day, he's a player that you need in the team. And I would have Mitro back up top, Lookman on the left. And, I appreciate a lot of people don't like Loftus-Cheek. I think he does add something to our game. And I think his strength and his driving style of play, I think he is important to how we do move forward. But we need someone in the area, in the box to finish the chances. And I think Mitro, he needs to start putting them away. It's only got to be a matter of time, isn't it? I mean, he's a natural goal scorer. He's been on a barren run for so long now that at some point it's got to snap. And I think, you need to start putting him in there. And then we have Magic to come off the bench. So, I mean, I am going for that 3-4-3 that we've been playing in the past just because of Everton's, play up front. But I thought the four at the back did work, but I don't think in this game it is particularly suitable. So.
I would disagree.
Well,
I think the four in the back is actually a better formation for us right now, just because it's a more even keel as far as what we've got across the back for defense. And if we go with like the 4-2-3-1 formation, you've got basically you can easily drop. Which we have done here several times, you could easily drop more into 6 almost across the back because you've got the likes of Anguissa, Lamina, Harrison Reed, or whoever, Tete or Bobby Reed actually has been dropping way back and helping for that. So I would like to stay consistent going forward, at least with the matches. If we're going to be more attacking, okay, then I'd go with the 3 in the back because we have more people we can push up into the midfield. If we're going to be more defensive minded, I'd rather stick with 4 across the back, 2 holding guys that can drop back in and help defend. But that's me.
No, I get it. I mean, I just think when you're facing Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, and Rodriguez, if he is fit, or Decore, whoever it may be, I think having those 3 at the back, concentrating on those players, and then allowing Tete or Bobby and Robinson to push more forward, not have to sort of lessen their attacking game by having to drop back constantly, then I think it just allows us to play slightly more fluid and with a bit more freedom, because that those 3 at the back are going to do a fairly, touch wood, going to do a fairly solid job. But I think, this is why people were calling for the 4 at the back for games when we were should have a better chance. I think Everton are a really good team, and I think this is a game that calls for 3/5 at the back. So, but that's just my opinion. So
that's what the game's all about. It's all about opinions, and unfortunately, the man whose opinion counts is Scott Parker. I don't mean that. I don't mean unfortunately. I just mean that we can't influence it. That's all I mean. I like Scott Parker. I desperately don't want him to go, but I'm bored of his football, and I'm bored of the results. And as a human being and as a person, I really like him. But as a football manager, there's a huge question mark for me at the moment. But anyway, let's keep going and let's see. I mean, this next week is really telling for us, because if he comes away and gets 4 points from Everton away, Burnley away, 2 places where we never get anything ever, then fair play to him. But I just can't see it. And I think this weekend will be a 2-0 defeat. I can't see us scoring at Goodison, and I think they're too good for us. What about you, Morgs?
Oh, I'm gonna go for a 1-1. I think I'm just trying to be optimistic. I don't think we can win there, but I think we've got it in us. I think we've got the fight in us to be able to get a draw. But I mean, I'm being pretty optimistic here.
Okay, I admire your optimism. Don?
I've told everybody online I'm trying to stay as optimistic as I can. I'm going to stick with Morgs. I'm really hoping for a draw. Whether it's 0-0, 1-1, I'm hoping for a draw.
That draw's no good to us, though, is it?
I know it's not. But, against these better teams, you'd at least hope to get a point. We'll get the 3 points where we can. And, there are teams like this that we do need to somehow slip 3 points out of. So, knock on wood, maybe this will be with that match and it'll happen. But I got a feeling it's a draw.
Okay. Well, I hope you're right. So I think before we go, after what happened at the Cottage at the end of the game on Saturday with the red card and Mike Dean, it's been a difficult week, certainly for Mike Dean. But the world we live in at the moment isn't particularly pleasant. Don, I think you wanted to just come in with a quick word about Mike Dean.
I would just say I feel for the guy and I feel for the refs right now. And a lot of this goes back to the times that we live in where everything is instant. We can get instant results on our phones and the internet of what's going on, the games, everything like that. We can watch, the replays of matches over and over in the slowest of motions to where we nitpick the shit out of it to death, And I was having a conversation with somebody not too long ago, and they said, Don, it's no worse what these death threats that Mike Dean got than back in the day, somebody walked in the pub and said that ref was just shit. I'd like to kill him. And I disagree. I completely disagree. It's completely different nowadays because nowadays these people are going on to the Mike Dean and his family's personal accounts and they're sending vile things, and death threats. And that is completely different than a person going in a pub and saying some offhand thing. I think that ref should be killed or shot or whatever it is, So if you're that guy who is so over the top that you got to do something like that, you need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and say, what the hell is wrong with yourself? Because there is definitely a problem there in my mind. I'm sorry. I see no reason for it, no need for it. And it just really got under my skin when I read the next day about all the stuff that him and his family have had to deal with. So my heart goes out to him and referees that have to make those decisions. We need them, whether we like them or not. Otherwise, we're just not going to have any good refs or refs at all to, watch over these games.
Without referees, we don't have football, do we?
Exactly.
But this is the reason why the amount of referees at grassroots level has tanked over the years, because they are literally threatened week in, week out. And when you get to, the quality that it takes to be a Premier League referee, you've put in the hard yards. Mike Dean's been in the game for years, decades. He probably, should have retired at some point, but at the end of the day, he loves it. And he is a very good referee. I mean, yes, some of his decisions are a little bit, questionable. And I think certainly Saturday's was, but no ref deserves that. The problem is there are so many idiots out there hiding behind keyboards who just type something which they may laugh about to their mates, not down the pub at the moment, but they'll laugh to their mates about, and without really thinking of the effect that it will have on a referee or anyone. It's like, it's quite similar to the racism that's going around, because it's coming around on Twitter, people hiding behind fake pictures of themselves with nothing to identify them apart from an IP address, which they probably hidden or whatever. And it's fucking disgusting because there is absolutely no need for it. It spoils everything for people. And it's never going to achieve anything apart from hopefully getting someone, punished for it. Because the quicker they find out who these people are and deal with them, maybe they can start stamping it out, because there is no point there. There is no reason for it. It's just awful.
It's one thing being at a football match and, maybe having a drink, maybe not having a drink, but having had a stressful week, you go along and you want to blow off some steam with your mates and you want to shout, you want to sing. And it's a high intensity environment, isn't it? A football match, very full of emotion. And you don't know. You sat in the Hammersmith end. There's a decision that goes against you up the other end. Everybody complains as if they could see it perfectly from 80 yards away. But even still, you still have a go at the ref. You call him all the names under the sun. The referee's a wanker, this, that, and the other. But time and a place in a football stadium, having a go at somebody, in the heat of the moment in that kind of way. You know, you're not being overly offensive. You're just telling him he's made a shit decision and letting him know. And that's always been part of the game, and that shouldn't be taken away from the game, in my opinion, in that situation. But then to come home and to dig out somebody's family, it's just stupid. It's absolute nonsense. Stop it.
I mean, I don't. These people are doing it. You know, it's a bit cliche to say it, but they're not real football fans, because real football fans know that the game stays at the ground. The decision stays there. You don't take it out after there. It's a bit like all these, all the Liverpool fans having a go at Pickford and saying that, criminal charges should be brought against him for his tackle on Van Dijk. They're not real sort of football fans because they don't, they're not understanding the game. They're just saying things because it's so easy just to type it, and you're not held accountable for anything you type. But I mean, obviously it's starting to change, but it's, at, glacial pace. These sort of things need to be stamped out, and they need to be stamped out now because it's getting out of hand, because people are at home, they're bored, they're just doing all sorts of crap. And it doesn't matter if it's referees, players, whatever. This is, as long as you bring in anything to do that isn't their performance, if you bring families, colour, whatever into it, it's not about football. And that's where the fun of it.
Anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know, I think we all here at Fulham Focus are behind Mike Dean and, feel bad for him and his family. One thing I would just a quick question for you too. I'm just curious about change of subject here so we don't end on such a sour note. I think I read you guys might be able to get back in the stands soon. Is that right? Depending on the tiers you're in?
We're not even allowed out the house. We're not even allowed out the house, mate. So I think you've misread.
I thought it was like beginning of March or something. They were talking this could happen.
There's a chance that we might be allowed out the house by then. But because
I thought like the FFP, I thought the Fulham Trust was actually already talking to Fulham and everything about how different changes might happen with the way the lottery runs for you guys to be able to get match tickets.
Maybe at some point, but not at the moment, mate. Not
a
chance.
No, we're stuck at home. We're under lock and key for now.
Again, I guess I was looking for any hope for you guys. I was reaching for straws.
No,
sorry.
Nothing.
Well, I said at the beginning it was going to be a different show, and it definitely has been. It hasn't been your standard sort of preview show, has it? There's been all sorts. So fair play. I think we've done an all right job there, guys. That's your lot for now, though, folks. I'll be back on Monday morning, and I'll be joined by Ben and Will to look back over the Everton game. So I'll see you all then. Cheers.